Shalom Aleichem again, and welcome back to our Halacha series, Sunday morning shir, 9 minutes of Hilchos Kibud. So we spoke about last week, unbelievable introduction about the importance and the segula and the wonderful things that are involved in excelling in this special mitzvah of Kibud Avayim. The segula that the Torah tells us about, the Arichos Yom V'Shanim, and all the wonderful things that comes from it. So let's delve into a few practical halachas that we have to know, things that come up every day, and we should definitely know what is the proper way, according to halacha, to go about these things. So we're holding over here in the beginning of the halachas of Kibud Avayim, which discuss that there is a mitzvah and an obligation to be mechabed your parents, kibud, to go and dress them, feed them, and to do all sorts of things that can give them a lot of kavod. And we are also discussing over here now the idea of moire, to fear them. Included in fearing your parents are the halachas of contradicting your parents, standing in their place or sitting in their place, to go call them by their name. Halachas like this are what are included in the category of moire. So let's talk about the first thing that comes up in Shulchan Aruch in Yoredei Reish Mem Sif Beis, which is the halacha of standing and sitting in a parent's place. So we see from the din of the Gemara and in Shulchan Aruch that a person is not allowed to go and stand in the place where his father talks to elderly people, Chazal teach us, and also a makom tefillah, a place where a father davens, his makom miyuchad for davening. You should not go and stand and daven in this place. Don't go and stand and hang around in the place which is set aside for your father. There was a question that came up from a kohen. He wanted to know that sometimes his father's not around in the same minyan that he is in, but he has a makom kavua, a place set aside where he goes in duchins, where he does birchas kohanim every day here in Eretz Yisrael, and he wanted to know if the halacha still applied even by the place where he goes and duchins for birchas kohanim. And the answer is yes. It's not specifically the place where he davens tefillah and shmon esrei. Rather, it is every place that is miyuchad for him for doing things that are special, and including mitzvahs and the like, which would include, of course, birchas kohanim. Therefore, I told him, after discussing this question with many of the Gedolei HaPoskim, that a person who is a kohen, he should be careful also not to go and stand in the place of his father. That is in regards to standing in his place. In regards to sitting in his place, so we know that there are many practical halachas that come out of this special din of moira, that a person has to go and fear his parents to the point where he's not allowed to sit in their seat. So at home, a father has a chair by the table, a special place where the father sits. That place which is set aside for the father, we see in Shulchan Aruch that it's also to go and sit in his place. We can't sit in his place, in the father's place, whether it's the father's chair or not. If it's, of course, the father's chair, which is miyuchad for him, a special chair, then we have to be careful. We can't even sit in the chair of the father. Okay, so we can't sit in the father's chair, we can't sit in his place. We have to be careful about that, and this includes types of things like even in the workplace. If you go to his office one day, you shouldn't go and sit in his chair in his office. A makom that is miyuchad for his father, not only in the house, but also in the shul. One shouldn't sit in his father's chair. One should only sit in his own chair. Sometimes the shaila comes up whether or not a shul which is very packed, sometimes there's a simcha in a shul, and people don't know that a certain seat is designated for a father. A person could be, let's say, in the middle of Psukei Zimra. He doesn't know if he's allowed to go and say or motion, because he knows that he can't talk during Psukei Zimra. So a person that he doesn't want to go and sit into his father's seat, he therefore goes and jumps and sits in the father's seat to save the seat of the father. So if it's his father's chair, which is miyuchad for him in the shul, but he's doing it only for the sake of saving himself, when his father comes to shul, he'll be able to sit in the seat and he won't get kicked out of his own seat, then the child wouldn't be allowed to do something like that. But in all other areas, a person should be very careful about this. The questions come up that are interesting questions, how far this stretches. Some of the Gedolei HaPoskim discuss whether or not a person is allowed to sleep and sit in a parent's bed. Some of the poskim were machmer in that Indian. Rabbi Yashiv, he was of the opinion that one does not have to be machmer in this. Sitting in a chair is the ikar isser and not into a bed, and therefore a person is allowed to go and sleep in his father's bed. A question comes up, unfortunately after a parent is nifter, is a person allowed to go sit in their chair, or it's only during their lifetime? So this is a big discussion. There are certain Rishonim that already discussed this. The Tosfos Zaken on the Gemara in Kedushin and Daf Lamed Beis, he already writes that this idea of moira includes some of the halachas, whether the father is alive, whether he's not alive. But in regards to sitting in the chair, there a child is allowed to go and sit in his parents' chair after they pass away. And that's also brought down in some of the other Achronim, the Shas Chuvas Yochel Alev, Rav Chaim Falashi, he also brings this down, and other Gedolei Poskim speak this out, and they mention that a person is allowed to sit in his parents' chair, that is miyuchad for him, or in his special place, whether it's in the shul, or whether it's in the house, after they go and pass on. And the question is if this is the right approach, this is the right thing that this person should do. So some of the poskim point out that in the first 12 months, the person should try not to do that. There's an Indian during the first 12 months after the parent passed away not to go and sit in their chair, but after that it is totally fine and it's okay, as is brought down by many poskim in the Gedolei Achronim and the Poskim Manenu. So that's in regards to sitting in the parent's chair after they pass away. There's a question also in regards to sitting in the parent's seat of his car. So over there the poskim will speak out that's not included in this Isser, only something which has more of a significance that it's really his father's chair, like we spoke about until now. But driving the father's car is not included in this Isser. Now, one of the questions that come up all the time is a parent allowed to forego on his kavod or on his moira? Meaning, in this case, let's say, when a person wants to sit in his father's chair, he asks his father for permission. Abba, Daddy, can I go sit in your chair? Do you mind if I sit in your chair? I want to try out your chair. I want to sit in your chair. I want to sit in your place. Is the father allowed to go and be moichel on his kavod? So we know this is a big discussion in the Gemara, in the Rishonim. They talk about this idea of whether or not a person is able to forego in his kavod to his children. In regards to moire, like I said over here, in regards to sitting in the parent's chair, so there, a lot of the poskim speak it out based on a Birkei Yosef, the Chidah, he brings down from other Rishonim, that it seems that in regards to a parent forgiving and forgoing on his moira, meaning he tells a kid, it's okay, you can sit in my chair. So many of the poskim agree that it's totally fine to do that. A parent is allowed to go and forgive on his kavod. So it comes up many times that parents are at home and the children are younger and they don't always understand the halachas that they're trying to teach them, and it makes it very hard. So obviously if a parent is moichel on his kavod and on his moira, he can allow his child to go and sit there. I do want to point out, many times young mothers call me and they tell me that they're trying to teach their children about these halachas, and I wonder how important it is. Sometimes they feel like if they're trying to be makbi that the child should not sit in the chair, they're speaking to the child all day, they want to know all day, it's forbidden, you can't sit, and they don't want to do that. And of course, I tell them, of course, this halacha, you're allowed to be moichel, and you can teach them the significance of it, but you are allowed to be moichel, and they could sit in the chair. However, I do point out something interesting, which I noticed over the years, is that sometimes people come back and they tell me, we had a play date, a young child came from school and came to play in the house, and right away they saw the child sitting on the parent's chair, and this child said, what are you doing? And they're all confused, and they don't understand. Everybody has different customs in their homes. Therefore, I always tell people that it's kedai, right? It makes a lot of sense that when you're going to go and rely on this leniency, even though it is very accepted amongst the Gedolei Achronim and the Rishonim even, a person should be careful and not to do things that might look strange in other people's eyes, and therefore, kedai not to go and sit in your parent's chair, especially when one of the parents are home, while you have guests over, if you are afraid that they're not really going to understand where the halacha is coming from, what you're doing. Okay, so this is in regards to sitting in the parent's chair. We have many types of practical halachas that can come out of it. Of course, as much as the person is able to go and strengthen himself in trying to be makbid l'chatchila in all the special cases that come up, you should try to do it, but it's always kedai to know where the leniencies are. Another thing that is also included in the idea of moira is calling a parent by their name. We know it's brought down in Shulchan Aruch also in Yerodei 7 Reish Mem, Siv Beis. The Shulchan Aruch points out that a person is supposed to be careful not to call his parent by their name, right? They're not supposed to call the parent by the name because it is a bizan. You can't call the parent by the name. You have to fear the parent, don't call him by his name. So, the question is, in regards to how does a person go about, right? Everybody calls a person up, let's say, for an Aliyah Torah, and they want to know, what's your father's name? So what is the person supposed to say? The person is supposed to say, I am the son of Reb. I am giving a title, giving something in front of it. And therefore, a person should be careful not to go and mention his parent's name without talking about that. Okay, we're going to try to go and fit in next week some other examples in regards to calling out a parent by their name, and we'll try to go further in this very important idea of going over the halachas of Kibud V'Eim. We should all have siyata d'shmaya to be mekayim and fulfill these wonderful halachas. Thank you all for listening. Everyone should have a wonderful day and a wonderful week, and kol tuv.